Nobody in the crowded base cafeteria knew her name. But the moment the Coke splashed over her head, the entire building went silent because someone finally recognized the insignia stitched beneath her collar, and by then, the man who dumped the drink was already laughing, not realizing what he had just done. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Lieutenant Captain Brooks had always believed the cafeteria was his territory. His booming voice filled every corner. His jokes were famous for being cruel, and his friends laughed at anything he did, whether it was actually funny or not. He walked like someone who thought rank made him untouchable, and most days, no one bothered correcting him. But that morning felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, the kind that settles in right before a storm. Plastic trays trembled slightly when placed on tables. A few young recruits whispered about an inspection happening somewhere on base, though no one knew who was actually arriving. Then she walked in. A woman in a simple gray hoodie, her brown hair tied in a neat knot, and her posture straight enough to make even battle-hardened soldiers glance twice. She carried herself with an odd blend of quiet confidence and invisible gravity, as if the air shifted to make space for her. She seemed familiar, but no one could place why. She moved through the cafeteria with calm steps and took a seat alone in the corner, brushing off dust from her sleeves. Her hands trembled for just a moment as she opened a small notebook, the pages worn and faded. There was a weight in her eyes, like she had seen things no one else in the room could imagine. Brooks noticed her, and he noticed that no one else knew who she was. A dangerous combination. He smirked. "Hey, guys, watch this," he whispered to his circle, picking up a full can of Coke from the table. "Let's welcome our mystery guest properly." The recruits stiffened. A few shook their heads in warning. One even whispered, "Don't, man, something feels off about her." Brooks dismissed it with a laugh. "Relax. She's probably someone's lost aunt visiting the base. I'll give her a story to remember." He strutted across the cafeteria, every step echoing with arrogance. Conversations softened. Chairs shifted. A wave of unease rippled through the room. The woman didn't look up. She was writing something in her notebook, maybe a letter, maybe a memory, when Brooks stopped behind her, cracked open the cold drink, and with a grin stretched wide across his face, poured it over her head. The liquid hit her hair, her shoulders, and her notebook. The sound was sharp, like rain striking metal. Her pen froze. The cafeteria fell into dead silence. Even the humming refrigerator sounded like it stopped. Brooks burst into laughter. "Didn't see that coming, did you?" But the woman simply closed her notebook, slowly, gently, and set her pen beside it. Then she stood up, not angrily, not defensively, but with a stillness that made the hairs on every neck rise. She turned to face him. And that's when everyone saw the small emblem beneath her collar. A gold insignia most soldiers only saw in manuals, rarely in person. A 4-star Naval Command insignia. Someone whispered shakily, "Sir, that's an Admiral." The color drained from Brooks's face so fast it was like watching ice form. His smirk vanished. His breath caught. He stepped back, stumbling over a chair, but the Admiral didn't react the way he expected. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She didn't bark orders. She simply looked at him with tired, disappointed eyes, the kind that carried decades of sacrifice. "I see humor is still being used to cover insecurity," she said, her voice calm but carved from stone. "Tell me, Captain, is this how you lead those under you?" The room held its breath. Brooks swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I didn't recognize." "That is the point," she replied softly. "Respect that depends on recognition is not respect. It is fear." That sentence cut the air sharper than any blade. She stepped past him, wiping Coke from her cheek with the back of her hand. Not a single person moved. Even Brooks's friends stared at him with disgust. But as she reached the exit, she paused. She thought she'd never see him again. She was wrong. 2 hours later, the entire base was ordered to assemble on the main field. Soldiers lined up in perfect rows, officers forming a semicircle near the front. The base commander looked unusually tense, his hands clasped tightly behind him. Brooks stood among the officers, palms sweating, heart slamming against his ribs. He kept replaying the cafeteria moment over and over, hoping, praying, it wouldn't lead where he feared it would. Then the Admiral walked onto the field, now wearing her full uniform. The sunlight glinted off her medals. Every ribbon told a story. Rescues completed, missions led, soldiers saved. She wasn't just any admiral. She was Admiral Rowan Blake, the ghost of a legend, known for leading some of the most dangerous humanitarian extractions in modern naval history. Some soldiers barely restrained their gasps. Brooks felt sick. The commander stepped forward. Admiral Blake, the base is assembled for your inspection. Admiral Blake didn't nod, didn't smile, didn't even acknowledge the formalities. She walked straight toward the officer's line, toward Brooks. His legs shook. Every officer beside him stiffened, all quietly desperate not to be the target of her stare. She stopped inches away from him, but instead of anger, her eyes held something painful, something human. "I do not care about a spilled drink," she said quietly. "I have endured far worse than humiliation." Brooks lowered his gaze, but, she continued, "I care deeply about the culture within this base. If leaders use power to belittle, then every soldier beneath them suffers." Murmurs rippled through the ranks, small, sharp, like gusts of wind cutting across the field. Then she looked beyond him, addressing everyone. "I visited undercover today because I wanted to see the truth. Not the polished tours, not the rehearsed greetings, but the heart of this place. And what I saw was fear disguised as humor." Her gaze drifted over the crowd, the silent recruits, the uneasy officers, the young soldiers who had watched the cafeteria scene unfold. "I will not tolerate a culture where cruelty is a form of entertainment." Brooks felt his throat close. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain. He wanted to disappear, but before he could speak, she held up a hand. "Captain Brooks, step forward." He did, legs trembling. She studied him for a long moment, and the tension on the field thickened like storm clouds gathering. "For your conduct," she began. Every heartbeat on the field synchronized. "You will undergo immediate leadership retraining and psychological evaluation. You will spend the next 8 weeks embedded with the humanitarian response unit you once mocked, and you will learn what leadership truly means." Brooks blinked in shock. No demotion, no discharge, just accountability. IT was harsher than punishment. It was a demand to become bettered. He almost collapsed with relief. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." She nodded once, then stepped back, her voice carrying across the field like thunder. "And let this be a reminder. Rank is not armor. Authority is not a shield. Who you are when no one is watching matters." A wave of quiet agreement moved through the formation. Shoulders straightened, faces softened. Something shifted in the atmosphere. Not fear, but a renewed sense of integrity. As the assembly dismissed and soldiers dispersed, recruits approached Brooks, not to mock him, but to offer quiet support. Some clapped his shoulder, some nodded, and for the first time in years, he listened. Later that evening, Brooks found the Admiral sitting alone on a bench overlooking the ocean, the sky painted in orange and gold. He approached cautiously. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. Truly." She didn't look at him, but her voice was gentle. "Learn from it, and then help someone who needs a better leader than you were yesterday." He nodded, eyes stinging with humility, because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back, and sometimes it returns wearing the uniform of the person you least expected. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this.